My name is Marlena. A week ago, my sister looked me dead in the eye and said, "Why don't you just disappear?" And my mother, she didn't flinch. She agreed. I didn't shout, didn't break anything. I just stood up and walked out. No scene, just silence. But truth is, they'd been erasing me long before that night. It started quietly, cutting me out of family photos, leaving my name off group emails, revising our stories, so I was never really in them to begin with. They didn't fight me. They simply rewrote the script, without me. But what do you do when your own blood edits you out of your life? And more importantly, what happens when you decide to write yourself back in? Dinner had been quiet, but not calm. Vera barely touched her food, idly tapping her fork like she was waiting for a signal. Something only she could hear. Clara sat across from me, swirling wine she wasn't drinking, eyes flicking toward the blank TV. The roast had cooled, the salad hadn't moved. No one said much. That should have been my warning. Then it came. A soft metallic clink, the sound of Vera setting her fork down with surgical precision. "Why don't you just disappear?" The words landed soft but deep, like a blade pressed, not plunged. My brain lagged behind. She said it the way people ask for a receipt, casual, bureaucratic. No anger, no bite, just suggestion. Before I could gather breath, Clara finally looked up and added, "Maybe we'd all be better off." That was the moment, the exact sentence that erased me. I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I didn't perform my pain. I just looked at them, really looked, and realized something terrifying. They meant it. Not to wound me, but because they were done pretending I belonged at that table. Here's what I've learned about my family. Whoever speaks louder wins. Silence, when used with precision, lasts longer than any scream. So I said nothing. I stood up, not as their daughter or sister, but as someone who finally understood she was a guest, overstaying her welcome. I climbed the stairs to what used to be my room. It had changed. The posters were gone, half my books packed away. A neat stack of linens now sat where my nightstand had once been. Someone had already started turning it into a guest room. I didn't linger. I pulled the old canvas bag from under the bed, tossed in my laptop chargers, a change of clothes, and one photo, Dad and me standing in front of the cabin near Sister's organ. The day we brought home that ridiculous wooden moose. Clara hated that photo. Dad's arm around me, my smile real. We both looked like we belonged. Downstairs, they hadn't moved. Vera was scrolling on her phone. Clara topped off her wine. I reached for my keys. "You always take things too personally," Clara said, as if diagnosing a chronic illness. I paused at the door long enough for it to be noticed. "I won't make this mistake again," I said. It wasn't a threat. It was a vow. No one followed me out. The sky was a heavy Oregon gray, low and indifferent. I didn't even turn on the radio. Just drove aimlessly through narrowing streets until Harper's porch light blinked into view like it had been waiting. She opened the door before I could knock. Didn't ask. Didn't blink. Just stepped aside the way you do when someone's come undone at your doorstep before. She made tea, handed it to me with both hands, sat beside me, and didn't say a word. I don't remember if I drank it. Just remember the heat of the mug in my hands and the hum of her refrigerator cutting through the silence. It was near midnight when I finally said it. They meant it. Mom, too. This time, they really meant it. Harper didn't speak. She didn't have to. I turned my phone off that night, but not before I saw the first missed call. I didn't know there'd be 13 by morning. I didn't know that just a week earlier, I'd almost convinced myself that things were shifting. It started so small. Vera's voice from the hallway. "Mom's doing a charity brunch this weekend. You want to help?" I blinked, confused. You want me there? She rolled her eyes. Didn't say headline it, Marlena. Just help. But it was the first time in months she'd asked me to do anything other than move my car. So I said yes. I showed up early, hair done, heels on, a little overdressed for folding chairs and buffet trays, but I wanted to look like someone worth remembering. Vera handed me a clipboard like I belonged, and for the first time in longer than I'd admit, I smiled without effort. Guests arrived in waves, neighbors, donors, 2 retired teachers from our high school. I greeted them all, directed them to tables, smiled until my face hurt. One older gentleman, Mr. Headley, approached me with a gentle grin. Well, if it isn't Vanessa, he said, patting my arm warmly. I froze. It's Marlena, I corrected softly. He blinked. My mistake. And in that tiny moment, I understood they didn't just want me gone. They were replacing me, rewriting the story. And in their version, I never really existed. You girls are starting to look more and more alike these days. Someone said that near the check-in table in passing. They were wrong. We didn't look alike. We never had. But people see what they're told to see. And the invitation stack nearby told them plenty, hosted by Clara Whitmore and Vera Whitmore, and guessed. I laughed, a dry, hollow laugh that didn't even leave my throat. Maybe it was a printing error, or maybe it was intentional. Either way, the message was clear. I was a footnote in my own family. The rest of the day didn't try to correct that narrative. If anything, it made it louder. When the speeches began, Vera was radiant under the stage lights. Microphone in hand, standing tall beside Clara, as if the spotlight was a birthright. She spoke of legacy, of community roots, of childhood memories. Then she paused, smiled, and said, When I was 10, I entered the Northwest Young Writers Competition. My spine stiffened. Dad helped me revise my story. Remember Mom? And when I won, we drove to Portland to accept the award. Applause. Clara smiled too smoothly, too easily. But I couldn't breathe. Because it wasn't her story. It was mine. I remembered the 2 a.m. revisions. The way I begged Dad to stay awake to read the 5th version. I remembered Vera barely glancing at me from the doorway, muttering that I was trying too hard. I remembered Dad's words. They'll remember this one sweetheart. But now, they clapped for her. And I sat in the back of the room, watching my own childhood passed off like a second-hand gift, repackaged and reassigned. After the event, I found her in the foyer, people milling around with paper cups and empty compliments. Why would you tell that story, I asked. Quiet. Controlled. She didn't blink. You really think you earned that win? She replied. The condescension was surgical. You wouldn't have finished the story if Mom hadn't begged me to help you fix the ending. That's not true. She stepped closer, just enough for her voice to drop like a whisper soaked in threat. Everything you have, you owe us. You're just living off what we built. Clara stood a few feet behind her, listening. I waited naively for her to say something to defend the daughter she once called her quiet one. But she just turned away, offering a polite smile to someone passing by. And in that moment, I knew I was an inconvenience in their narrative. A smudge they were erasing. That night, I sat in my car outside Harper's Place. The windows fogged slightly, though it wasn't cold. I didn't go inside, didn't knock. Just stared at myself in the rearview mirror. What if Vera was right? What if none of it was really mine? Memories are fragile. Twist them often enough, and even the person who lived them forgets where the truth ends and the revision begins. I drove home before midnight. The apartment was quiet. Still. I dropped my purse, kicked off my shoes, stood at the threshold of my bedroom. I'd packed a weekend bag thinking I might stay with Harper. But after the brunch, I unpacked it, folded everything carefully, slid it back into the closet, as if it had never been touched. Maybe I'm being too sensitive, I whispered aloud. But I already knew deep beneath that sentence, something inside me had accepted that this wasn't the first rewrite, and it wouldn't be the last. 3 days before I walked out for good, Vera texted me. She needed a USB drive from an old project we'd worked on years ago. The message was oddly polite. I mistook it for peace. I shouldn't have. When I stepped into the house I once called home, it smelled of polish and lilacs. Clean, curated, like someone had staged it for a showing. I wandered toward the fireplace. Then I saw it, the family portrait from Yellowstone. The one where Dad insisted we wear matching shirts, laugh like we weren't freezing, pretend we weren't tired. It had been stiff awkward, but it was one of the last photos of all 4 of us together. Except now there were only 3. It was the same shot, same trees, same clothes. But the version above the mantel was larger. Vera in the center. Clara to her right. Dad's hand resting proudly on Vera's shoulder. And the far left, where I once stood, arm awkwardly looped behind Vera's back, had been extended, the background digitally widened. The place where I'd been, gone. Cropped out. My stomach dropped. I pulled out my phone, found the original. I'd saved it in a folder called Things Worth Keeping. I held it up. Same date, same smiles. Just one person missing. Me. I didn't speak, just stared at the empty space as if it might explain itself. Upstairs, I heard drawers open and close. The soft shuffling of folded laundry. I followed the noise not out of curiosity, but because something hollow had started growing in my chest. The door to my old room was open. Same paint. But it wasn't my room anymore. Something in the air had shifted. Vera stood there, folding towels on my old chair. A pale blue satin dress hung beside her. I knew that dress. I'd picked the fabric myself. Dad had it tailored for my 28th birthday. "Where did you find that?" I asked. My voice low. Controlled. She didn't even look up. "It was in storage," Vera said without looking up. "I had it taken in." "You had it taken in." "My dress." My voice broke a little as it left my mouth. It wasn't the volume that mattered. It was the quiet disbelief riding on the edges, fraying like fabric pulled too tight. "You haven't worn it in years." She said it like that, flat. Authoritative. Like that explained everything, as if time passed, gave her permission to rewrite the ownership of what wasn't hers. "It wasn't yours to alter." I said it low tight, trying not to shake. Vera just shrugged. "It's not like he's here to care anymore." That line, it hit harder than she expected. Or maybe not. Maybe it landed exactly where she aimed. Before I could respond, Clara appeared in the doorway, drying her hands on a dish towel. Her presence didn't interrupt, it neutralized. She glanced between us, smiled an odd off-key curve of the lips, and said, "Come on, girls, let's go downstairs." No questions, no context. No recognition of the words that had just sliced the room in half. She didn't even look at me. Her face was blank, like the family portrait downstairs, edited, adjusted, smoothed out to fit the version of the story they were writing now. I left without another word. In the driveway, I sat in my car long after the engine had cooled. The cabin was warm from the sun, but my fingers trembled on the steering wheel. I turned the key, then turned it off again. Just sat there, breathing through the hollowness. They're not just taking space, I whispered. They're rewriting the story. And suddenly, I saw it, Dad's handwriting curling across the back of my old poetry journal. Memories are how we protect what matters. But what do you do when the people around you start sanding down the edges of your life until even you can't tell what was real and what was revised? I drove home slowly, stopping at a gas station. I didn't need just to have something to do, just to stand still without feeling like I was drowning. That night, I sat in the dim of my apartment and pulled out the old hard drive I hadn't touched in over a year. It whirred to life like something ancient waking up. I created a folder. I named it Proof. Inside it, I dropped everything that tethered me to the truth photos with me in the frame. Text messages, emails, birthday voice notes from Dad, one from when I turned 25. I wasn't planning to use them, not yet. But if they were going to erase me from the story, I needed to leave behind something that said I was here, even if I was the only one left to see it. 2 days before everything collapsed, I got an envelope in the mail. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering, Clara's signature taste. Inside, an invitation to the Eugene Historical Society's 50th anniversary gala, hosted by Ms. Vera Whitmore and guest. No mention of me, no Whitmore family, not even Marlena Whitmore. Just an implication, cold and sharp like the feeling of opening the front door for someone who doesn't recognize you. Harper urged me to go. "Show up," she said. "Look good. Remind them you don't disappear just because they forget to say your name." So I went. The civic hall smelled like polished wood and wilted flowers. Rows of chairs lined the stage. Glass pitchers sweated under the spotlights. I recognized most of the faces, donors, retired teachers, board members. People who once called me the sweet one when I still belonged to a version of this family that wasn't staged. I walked in heels, echoing off the floor like defiance, smiling as if it didn't burn. Before Vera even reached the podium, I could feel the shift in the room, the attention wrapped around her like silk. She stood with the ease of someone rehearsed in performance, her voice smooth and composed. Public Vera, the one who knew how to win a room. She opened with charm, thanking former board members, naming Clara, nodding to the familiar. Then came the story. "I remember driving across counties with Mom," she said, delivering brochures by hand, door to door, back when we were just starting the foundation. She smiled. Clara beamed. But it hadn't been Vera. It had been me. My beat-up Honda, my sticky note maps, my summer spent guzzling gas station coffee and rushing back inside for hand sanitizer. I knew every road, every mailbox. That story had a heartbeat. Mine. And now, it wasn't mine anymore. Vera had only tagged along once, one single day, one drive, and now she'd claimed the entire journey as hers. The audience clapped anyway. I sat in the third row, nodding like I was in agreement with a version of history that no longer contained me. By the time I stood, my hands were trembling. I slipped quietly through the side door, past a caterer arranging trays of desserts, and into a quiet, unlit hallway. I pulled the invitation from my bag again, just to remind myself what I'd accepted. This time, I noticed what I'd missed before: Veronica Clara Whitmore and guest. They'd used her full name. Every letter a stamp of legacy. I folded the card, carefully slid it into the trash bin outside the restroom. No drama. Just discarded. But it wasn't the first time. My mind reached back to a library room when I was 11. My palms sweaty holding a poem I'd written for a regional contest. I remembered how proud Dad was, how he grinned the entire drive home. Mom had told the neighbors, "She really has a voice." And then weeks later, I heard Vera on the phone. "Yeah, Marlena and I worked on that poem together. I helped her with the rhythm." Clara had been in the kitchen. She didn't correct her. She never did. That's when the erosion began. Not as a storm, but as a slow leak, like rot beneath paint. Silent, spreading. After the gala, I found Vera near the refreshment table sipping lemon water like she'd just won an award. There was no audience now, just us. "Why do you keep erasing me?" I asked. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. She blinked. "Jesus, Marlena. Grow up. You took my story again. You stood up there and gave away a memory that wasn't yours." "You were always the delicate one," she said, setting her glass down with a soft click. "We couldn't count on you to follow through. You cracked under pressure." I stared at her steady. "That wasn't your call to make." She leaned in slightly, her voice low and sharp. "You don't get to rewrite the past just because you want a bigger part in it." "No," I replied, calm but certain. "You don't get to rewrite me just because you speak louder." She laughed, that familiar clipped exhale she always used to dismiss me without dirtying her hands. And then she walked away. Clara appeared seconds later, stepping out from the side hallway holding a plate of untouched finger sandwiches. She'd heard something. Probably enough. "Did you hear what she said?" I asked. She shifted the plate from one hand to the other. "She didn't mean it like that." "But you always mean it like that," I said. "You mean it with silence." She didn't respond, just stood there holding something as weightless as her regard for me. That was the last time I waited for either of them to offer me a place at their table. I should have known it was never real. I should have known the second Clara called it a check-in, her favorite euphemism for confrontation wrapped in diplomacy. Her voice had been polished too smooth to be warm. "Just come by. It's time we talked through everything." I arrived the next afternoon around 4. The sky was the color of dishwater, flat, indifferent, but the air felt heavier, like it had been warned. That weight followed me up the walkway and settled behind my ribs. Vera's car was already in the driveway, parked like it belonged there more than I did. Of course she was here. Of course they were doing this together. Clara opened the door without greeting. No hug, no warmth, just a nod and a stiff motion inward like I was dropping off dry cleaning. Vera sat at the dining table, a thick folder in front of her. I didn't need to read the gold-embossed logo to recognize it. I'd seen that same font when Dad died. Clara motioned toward the empty chair. "We've made a few updates to the estate plan. Nothing urgent, just clarifications." I didn't sit. I stayed in my coat, the chill of what was coming already lodged in my spine. Vera pushed the folder across the glossy wood. "It's simpler this way. The properties will be transferred into my name. Fewer legal hurdles." I turned to Clara. "Is that what this is? A simplification?" She avoided my eyes. "You'll still receive a cash portion. It's not large, but meaningful." "And the power of attorney?" I asked. Clara paused, then offered the kind of smile reserved for news anchors and HR professionals. "We thought it might be overwhelming. You've had a lot going on lately." There it was, their tone. Cloaked concern dressed up as protection. Professional language masking a deeply personal betrayal. I took a breath, slow and deliberate. "Did either of you ask how that would feel?" Vera folded her arms and leaned back. "You're too emotional for those decisions, Marlena." That phrase, that cold, condescending phrase. I'd heard it for years, repackaged, rephrased, reloaded, but always the same. It was never a question, always a conclusion. Only now it came with paperwork. Clara stood, moved to the cabinet near the wall, and opened the top drawer like she already knew what she was looking for. She returned with a small envelope worn at the edges, paper yellowed by time. She placed it on the table between us with surgical gentleness. "I found this while clearing out the upstairs closet," she said. "It's the letter you wrote me when you were 19. You tucked in money from your first job." I stared at the handwriting, my own. It looked smaller than I remembered, more hopeful. Clara gave a faint smile, a performance cloaked in nostalgia. "You don't need to hold on to things like this," she said. "It's not necessary." She hadn't even opened it. I reached out slowly, picked up the envelope, and slipped it into my purse. My hand paused there for a moment, half grief, half defiance. Silence filled the room, thick with unsaid things. Heavy. Watching. Then something in me shifted. My voice came out low, flat, cold. "You've made your choices," I said, "and I won't fight you for a seat at a table you already cleared of me." Clara blinked, her face carefully still. "Don't be dramatic. No one's pushing you out." I looked from one sister to the other. "I'm not being dramatic," I said quietly. "I'm just done underreacting." I picked up the folder Vera had slid across the table, handed it back to her, untouched. "I don't need this." Vera let out an annoyed sigh. "You always make things harder than they need to be." "And yet," I replied, slipping my arms into my coat, "I'm still the quiet one between us." They didn't follow, didn't speak, didn't stop me. I walked out with a steadiness that felt like armor, each step slow, final, deliberate. Like I was sealing a casket that should have been buried years ago. This time, I didn't look back. Once inside my car, I sat with the keys in my lap. The hedge beside the driveway caught my eye, the same one I used to hide in as a kid. I'd cry there, dream there. I used to pretend it was a secret passage to another life. Maybe in some way it still was. I picked up my phone and dialed Harper. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, you okay?" I glanced at the envelope on the passenger seat, my younger self folded up and fading. "I need your help," I said. "With what I'm going to start collecting everything. Photos, emails, letters, screenshots. Anything that proves I was here, that I mattered." There was a pause. To what end? I looked at the steering wheel. Then at the envelope. Then somewhere further. "To remind them I existed," I said quietly. "Before I prove it." The morning I left, I wasn't supposed to be awake. Sleep had only half softened the ache in my chest after the meeting with Clara and Vera. My ribs still felt like they were holding in too much grief betrayal history. I rolled over, planning to disappear into the blankets for one more hour. Then came the ping. I wasn't expecting anything, maybe spam, a newsletter. But the subject line caught my eye. "Final edits approved tribute video." It was part of a chain between Vera and a PR contractor. I wasn't supposed to be copied. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. The exchange was professional, efficient. Then, halfway through the thread, I saw it. "Make sure our latest part isn't included in the final cut," Vera had written. "We've already aligned the messaging." The reply came quickly. "Understood." Replacing with extended Vera clip. I read it once, then again, then again. I should have thrown the laptop across the room. Screamed. But I didn't. I just sat there numb. Not surprised, just finally seeing what I'd always suspected. The tribute video for Clara's milestone birthday. That ridiculous garden party with its curated nostalgia and overpriced lanterns. I'd filmed my segment for it. Spent hours fixing the curtains to catch the golden hour light. Took take after take, because my voice kept cracking. I even cried, talking about how she used to read to us under the jacaranda tree. And it never aired. Not because it wasn't good enough, because Vera had erased me. Again. By noon, I was at Harper's. I didn't say much. Just walked in, laptop under my arm, and that kind of silence that only best friends understand. She opened the door, looked once at my face, and cleared her dining table without a word. "Check the shared drive," I said, my voice dull. "Vera sent it to me months ago. I never looked." We found it after digging through digital debris buried beneath folders with titles like Legacy Content and Final Assets. The spinning wheel felt eternal before the file finally opened. Family timeline. Inside was a trash folder, and within it, Arlena birthday clip final.move. Still there, still time-stamped, still me. Harper backed it up with the urgency of recovering evidence from a locked vault. 2 hard drives, a cloud archive, even a burner email I'd forgotten existed. She turned to me and asked what I wanted to do with it. I stared at the name, the version of me they'd decided didn't belong. "Keep it," I said. "For now." Back home, I didn't unpack or eat. I didn't scroll. I didn't run from the feeling this time. Instead, I cleared off my desk, wiped it clean with an old towel, and opened a blank folder on my screen. I named it The Rewrite. I started dragging in every piece of evidence, not to accuse, not to threaten, but so that finally someone would know it wasn't just in my head. I added a cropped version of the Yellowstone photo with my shoulder cut out, the birthday invitation that omitted my name, the tribute video, my voice, my memory, my face. Screenshots of Vera's erasure instructions. The estate documents Clara handed me with that carefully neutral expression, the envelope with my 19-year-old self's letter still sealed, still unread. Each file landed like a bone in a display case. They had their version. This was mine. I wasn't angry, not in the loud, clawing way people expected. This was something colder, more complete. Harper texted me around 8. "You good?" I stared at the message for a while before replying. "I'm about to be." I opened a new message window. I didn't write an introduction. I didn't say goodbye. Just attached 2 files, the tribute video and a screenshot of Vera's email to the PR firm. I addressed it not to Vera, not to Clara, but to the people they cared most about impressing: Clara's nonprofit board, the top donors, the foundation's media consultant. Subject line: this was her daughter too. I hovered over send, not in doubt, but to remember the stillness. Then I clicked. No explosion. No retaliation. Just truth measured final quiet. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city pulsed in its usual rhythm. Tail lights, porch lights, apartment windows blinking on like small awakenings. Life didn't stop. But I had made it pause for just a moment with proof. They could go on pretending I was never part of their story. But not this time. This time, I wrote it down. The magazine was everywhere. I hadn't planned to see it. I only stopped at the cafe for a quick cup of coffee, but there it was, stacked at the register like scripture. Clara and Vera stood on the glossy cover in pastel suits, arms gently linked, smiles careful. "The women behind the legacy," the headline read. I didn't pick it up right away. Just stared at it like it might catch fire under my gaze. Eventually, curiosity won. I opened it with the same caution you give to something that might cut you. The article was glowing. Pages of praise, their tireless leadership, their vision, their bond. I scanned every line for my name. It wasn't there. Not even once. Then came the gut punch Vera credited as the sole visionary behind the scholarship fund. The same one I had named, built, defended. I sank into the nearest chair. My coffee sat untouched, steam spiraling upward like it didn't want to stay. Within the hour, the text began. Just read the article, so proud of your family. Didn't know you stepped back. That must have been hard. Vera really carried things, huh? I stared at the last one, then typed back to Harper. I didn't step back. I got shoved. By late afternoon, I was outside Clara's house. The sky had faded into a calm, wounded blue. Clouds moved in low, like they already knew what was coming. I didn't knock. I walked in. Clara was in the sunroom watering her plants like everything was still in place. Vera wasn't there. I didn't bother with greetings. I made my way to the hallway that used to hang our childhood artwork back when Clara pretended to be proud of both of us. And there it was. The painting I made at 14. Navy swirls. Gold flecks. No nameplate. No attribution. Crooked, but still hanging. Still mine. I still remembered painting it every brushstroke, every stubborn swirl of navy I'd fought into place. Dad had called it my voice without words. Now it hung on Clara's wall inside a polished wooden frame. Only now it bore Vera's name in the bottom right corner, neat-centered, like she'd been born with the credit. I stood in front of it, breath thinning the silence around me, almost cruel. You knew that was mine, I said quietly. Clara stepped in behind me, her tone soft, almost maternal. I thought you wouldn't care. It's been years. I turned to face her. So, because I stopped asking for space, you decided I didn't deserve any? She opened her mouth, but closed it again before words could take shape. I moved to the bookshelf, scanning its contents like an autopsy. And there they were. 2 awards I'd won in college, now curated into the hallway exhibit Vera had built. Only her name was listed on the plaques. This isn't about memory anymore, I said. It's about intent. Clara didn't respond. You're not just letting her rewrite everything I added. You're helping her do it. There was nothing left to save in that room. No explanation that could smooth over the erasure. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just took out my phone and snapped a photo of the painting. Then another of the mislabeled awards. That night in my dim apartment, I opened my laptop with the same steadiness I'd used to walk away from them. I drafted a new email. No greeting, no emotion. Just attachments, my original scholarship proposal, every page of it, and Vera's version submitted months later. Same structure, same language, but different name. Mine replaced. I added the photo of the painting, attached an old digital version of the same artwork saved on a decade-old hard drive. Same pattern, same brushwork, my name embedded in the metadata. Subject line, you might want to fact-check your front page. I didn't sign it. I didn't have to. By morning, the article was gone from the magazine's site. No retraction, no apology. But silence this time was not mine. Harper forwarded me screenshots from a board member's email. Why wasn't Arlena listed? Another asked, can we confirm authorship of the scholarship fund language? I didn't need answers, just the discomfort, just the weight shifting for once. That night, I wasn't planning to check my phone again. I thought maybe after the pullback there'd be quiet, peace. But peace doesn't come from people who profit from your absence. Not real peace. At 10:17 p.m., the screen lit up. Vera's name, a single message. She'll spiral. Let her. No one believes her anyway. No salutation. No punctuation. More importantly, no name. She. It wasn't meant for me, clearly sent to Clara, but it landed in my inbox anyway. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't know what stung more, the dismissal or the fact that even in private, I didn't deserve a name. Just she, as if I were a storm they could watch through a pane of glass. As if I didn't live inside the house too. I didn't reply. Instead, I stepped out onto Harper's porch. The light overhead buzzed softly, casting a faint halo against the sidewalk. I walked the driveway once, then again, trying to breathe past the feeling. Harper came out a moment later, arms folded beneath her hoodie. She sent it, she asked, already knowing. Wrong thread. Right target, I muttered. She waited. Gave me space. They never saw me as part of this family, I said. Just someone to contain, to quiet down. Harper didn't interrupt. I'm not going back, I added. Not even for closure. There's nothing left to close. Later, we sat side by side on her couch, lukewarm tea between us. She went digging through a drawer of old tech cables, thumb drives, batteries, long dead. Then she pulled out a portable hard drive I'd given her years ago when clearing out my childhood desk. I don't know if it still works, she said. It did. The files loaded slowly, but they were there. A folder titled Letters That Didn't Need Stamps. Inside a document for Arlena, if I don't get to say it. My hand shook. I double-clicked. It was a draft, an email from Dad. Never sent, never printed, just saved. Sweetheart, it began. I don't know when this will reach you, or if it ever should, but I see things. I see how Vera needs control more than closeness. I see how your mother fears friction more than injustice. And I see you. I still remembered how it felt to wrestle that painting into form. Dad once said it was my voice without words. Now it hung in a frame, with Vera's name etched neatly in the corner. I stood in front of it, the air around me thinning. You knew it was mine, I said. Quiet. Clara stood behind me and whispered that she didn't think I'd care. It had been years. So, because I stopped asking for space, you assumed I didn't deserve any. She didn't answer. I moved past her, scanning the hallway for other ghosts. There they were. 2 college awards I had earned, now displayed as artifacts in Vera's timeline exhibit. Only her name appeared on the tags. This wasn't about memory anymore. It was about intention. I told Clara she wasn't just letting Vera rewrite history. She was helping her do it. There was nothing left to salvage. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I took out my phone, snapped a picture of the painting, then another of the misattributed plaques. That night in my apartment, lit only by the soft glow of a desk lamp, I opened a new email. No salutation, no emotion, just evidence. I attached side-by-side scans, my original scholarship proposal and Vera's published version. The structure identical, the edits slight, the timestamps clear, the signature not hers. I added the photo of the painting, attached an old digital version from a hard drive, the metadata embedded with my name. Subject line. You might want to fact-check your front page. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. By morning, the article was gone. Quietly erased. No correction, no apology. Harper sent me screenshots, board members questioning the omission, others asking who truly authored the fund. I didn't want responses. I just wanted the silence for once to be theirs. That night, I wasn't expecting to check my phone again. But at 10:17 p.m., it lit up. Vera's name. One message, she'll spiral. Let her. No one believes her anyway. No greeting, no punctuation, no name, just she. It wasn't meant for me, it was meant for Clara, but it landed in my inbox all the same. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't know what hurt more, the words or the absence of my name, even in private. She, like I, was a problem they observed from afar. Not a person who had lived in their house, shared their history. I didn't respond. I stepped outside Harper's apartment. The porch light buzzed overhead, casting a faint halo. I paced the driveway twice, trying to exhale the weight in my chest. Harper came out and stood beside me, her arms crossed over her hoodie. She asked if Vera had sent it. I said wrong thread. Right target. I looked at her, unsure how to say it. I finally said they never saw me as part of the family, only something to manage, to silence. Harper didn't interrupt. I told her I wasn't going back. Not for closure, because there was nothing left to close. Later, we sat on her couch. She rummaged through an old drawer of tangled chargers and forgotten USBs until she found it a portable hard drive I'd given her years ago when cleaning out my childhood desk. "I don't know if it still works," she said. It did. The files loaded slowly. One folder caught my eye. Letters that didn't need stamps. Inside was a document titled, "For Arlena." If I don't get to say it. My hands trembled. I opened it. It was a draft email from Dad. Unsaved, unsent, but written. "Sweetheart." It began. "I don't know when this will reach you, or if it ever should, but I see things. I see how Vera needs control more than closeness. I see how your mother fears friction more than injustice. And I see you. You were always the one who saw clearly. That made you a threat even in this house. You are not too much. You are not dramatic. You are feeling what others refuse to. Don't let them make you forget who you are. You see more because you feel more." I sat there, his words glowing on the screen, my heart stretching to hold both pain and relief. I printed the letter, but didn't send it to anyone. Not yet. I added it to the folder on my laptop titled Not Forgotten. It held everything they had tried to erase: the cropped photos, the deleted video, the silence turned into evidence. That night, I sent just one thing to the community center: the original birthday tribute video, the one Vera had deleted from Clara's event. No message, no context, just the file. My voice, my story. The next day, it aired online quietly during their Women's History Month montage. It didn't go viral. It didn't need to. Clara saw it. She texted Vera one word enough. "I saw the read receipt." No reply came. I deleted Vera's accidental message after that. No response. No screenshot. Some things don't deserve to be held even if they land in your hands directly. She thought I'd burn down. I didn't. I lit the room instead. The next morning, the phone rang 13 times. I didn't answer. I brewed coffee, opened my laptop, and created a new document. Not a blog, not a letter, a manuscript. Page 1 read, "The Disappearing Daughter." The calls started again just after sunrise. First Clara, then Vera, then a number I didn't know. I didn't answer. I pulled my knees under the blanket and listened to their voicemails one by one. Vera's voice cracked breathless. "Arlena, I don't know what you think you're doing. You need to stop before you ruin everything." Clara's message was slower rehearsed. "We'd like to speak if you're open." We didn't realize the full extent, but the one that stayed with me was barely audible. A sigh. Then Clara's whisper, "I don't know where we lost you." I didn't save the messages. That morning, I walked to the river trail near my apartment, the same one Dad used to take me to when we needed a break from the house. I tucked his unsent letter into my coat pocket. Printed, folded once. It felt like a weight I needed against my chest. I didn't cry. I let the rhythm of the water pull the tension from my shoulders. I am still here, I whispered with every step. I didn't vanish. When I got home, there was a package leaning against my door. No return address. No note. Inside, the original family photo. Uncropped. All four of us. Yellowstone. My arm awkwardly slung behind Vera. I remembered the fight over who stood where. Dad eventually said, "It's just a picture, girls." But it wasn't. It never was. Taped behind the frame was a yellowed piece of paper, my poem from age 11. The one Clara said she didn't remember. The one Vera claimed as a collaboration. She had kept it. Quietly. I didn't call. Some things don't need words. And Vera, she never called again. But in the following days, her name began to disappear from press releases, foundation rosters, project credits. Replaced by team or committee. I didn't feel triumphant, just lighter. A week later, I spoke to a community group about the role of storytelling in personal identity. I almost said no, but I didn't. I stood in a small room and told a simple truth I was once erased. But I reappeared, on my own terms. There was a long pause after I finished. Then a woman stood, eyes glassy. I've waited my whole life to hear someone say that. The following Monday, I signed a publishing contract with a small press in Seattle. The book disappeared, A Daughter's Undoing. On the dedication page, I wrote, "For anyone who needed proof they were real." That night, I closed my laptop, walked barefoot into the kitchen, boiled water for tea, and watched the leaves swirl. The apartment was quiet, but this quiet belonged to me. Sunlight cut through the blinds and lit the windowsill. The photo sat there in a simple frame, uncropped. Beside it, Dad's email, printed on ivory paper, framed. I didn't frame them to prove anything. I framed them to remember. I never needed to be louder. I just needed to stop waiting for someone else to say I mattered. The light warmed my cheek. I smiled. Small, but steady. Sometimes the ones who silence us the most are the ones who shout their love the loudest. I spent years trying to earn a seat at a table that had already voted. The truth is, your worth isn't up for debate, and your memories are not optional. If you've ever been rewritten, overlooked, made to feel like too much or not enough, know this: you don't need their permission to exist. You don't need to be louder. You just need to stand still long enough for your truth to echo. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt like someone hijacked your story or made you prove your place in your own family? Let me know below. Drop a 1 if this story hit close to home. Or tell me where you're watching from. If this meant something to you, stirred something inside, subscribe for more stories that challenge silence and remind us we're not alone. I'll be reading. Let's keep this conversation going.